here at the Huntingdon Library with the great Charles Altieri. Charlie. Hi, Charlie. We're going to read and talk about a poem by Wallace Stevens called The Plot Against the Giant. Charlie will read it and we'll talk about it.
The Plot Against the Giant. First girl. When this yokel comes maundering, wetting his hacker, I shall run before him, diffusing the civilest odors out of geraniums and unsmelled flowers. It will check it. Second girl, I shall run before him, arching claws besprinkled with colors as small as fish eggs. The threads will abash him. Third girl, oh la pauvre, I shall run before him with a curious puffing. He will bend his ear then. I shall whisper heavenly labels in a world of gutturals. It will undo him.
Charlie, why does the third girl undo him as opposed to the first and second?
Because the sound is more intimately other to giantness than the other features of color and
right.
and what's the first one? Odors.
That's so. Right. So we've got smells, colors, and sounds. But Stevens, at least, seems to be saying at this moment that giantness or roughness is going to be undone by sound. What is Stevens saying about the importance of sound?
Well, I think that the giant represents or echoes reality as power in itself by demanding description. And what the third girl does is that reality can also elicit sounds and the pleasure in the domain of sounds. And the giant doesn't have a category for that. I mean, he can't appropriate it. It's just the full. So heavenly labials in a world of gutturals. It's just, I mean, there's the alliterations, but there's also the cadence and balance. It undoes me.
It doubly does its work by talking thematically about sounds undoing a giant, but then it does the work.
I think that's really a good point. So the previous two girls have to show him something.
Right.
And in a sense, the power of description can handle that.
Right.
But the poem does what the lady is doing.
That's right.
And that doesn't, it's just not in the world of the giant.
Right. So poems can do odors with difficulty, poems can do colors with difficulty, but poems always do sound.
They always do sound, but they don't make sound a jig. This is a private joke, right? I mean,
right. We've been talking about Stevens' letters and his jigs,
and eros, and the whole, I mean, it's not just self-reference, right? But it's the delight of self-reference. The sense that you're in a world that can be expanded in all sorts of directions once you allow sound to sort of be a kind of dominant feature.
Who says the French at the beginning of the third girl's, this is her speaking?
I think so, yeah.
And what is she saying?
I think that La Pauvre is the giant. I never thought about that, but it has to be,
Yeah. So she's very empathetic. Right?
That's nice.
She appeals to him by speaking to him in a way that the others don't.
That's very good. Yeah.
Final thought on this? Why is this a poem worth talking about?
Two reasons. One is I can't remember that, but the whole structure of harmonium depends on these contrasting voices that then come into Mon Oncle, and then it sort of wanders in other directions. But also from the start, Stevens is fundamentally thinking about what alternatives there are to the world of description and primarily to epistemology. And what's great about this poem is that as you said, the alternative is enacted. It's not asserted, so it's always there for the reading. And it's sort of another thing. an invitation to Baroqueness, right? Or to registering the claims of Baroqueness in relation to this sort of secularized world.
That's amazing. And the fact that it undoes you, as you said a minute ago, underscores its quality as the kind of poem that's doing what it says.
Absolutely.
So much poetry, not the poetry I suspect you and I admire, but so much poetry says a lot, but doesn't actually do in its words and its sounds what it says. This is one of them that does.
That's what harmonium is. I think the great inspiration to harmonium is the fact that poetry can do things. And then he looks back and says, what's the value of what it's doing? Right. And then he gets pompous and pious.
Right. So harmonium is a good place to go for the beginning of that whole discussion.
I think so.
Charlie Altieri, thank you so much for doing this.
My pleasure.
All right, by the way, for tomorrow, don't you?
If you liked this episode, watch another and subscribe.
And join us for ModPo, a free and open course at modpo.org.